I'm Kylie Truesdale. I go by Kai True for like the modeling and OnlyFans and whatnot scene, and I'm 25, and it is October 4th.
I think is it the 4th?
Is it the 4th? Oh,
It's
shit.
the 5th.
Okay. It's the 5th. It's October 5th, 2021.
Awesome. Did you say 2021?
I did. I'm so nervous.
Well, a good start.
Okay. Yeah. My name is Kylie Truesdale. I go by Kai True. It is October 5th, 2022.
Awesome.
Thank God.
Why are we
fine.
doing this?
This is going to be really awesome thank you, for myself to look back on as like a good reminder how I spent my early 20s. I feel like I personally not only did like a lot of growth in myself, and I want to be able to look back on that and what I did, but it's also like I get a lot of questions that I think this will answer all at once, because like as I'm stepping out of like the modeling scene, because I'm not active in it as I was, it's definitely, I get a lot of like, how'd you get into it? Like, what was it like for you? Like, what'd you do with it? And this will be a good like recap of all that.
Awesome. And what is your favorite dinosaur?
Dilophosaurus.
Ooh.
They got like this spitty little neck flaps and they spit venom, and they're my favorite. They're my favorite. They're my absolute favorite. I got a tattoo.
You know what's pretty crazy is that the other day when I was writing out questions for you, and I was writing that question, I was like, I wonder if she's gonna say the big fringy spitty dinosaur.
That is
I literally thought that.
That's my favorite. I got the tattoo and everything. That's
Nice.
a skull. He's my favorite dude. He's just so cool. Like he just flaps out in the.
He's very unique. I like him. So, talk to me about your first foray into modeling. What was it like in the beginning?
So I didn't plan for that question. My first time modeling, I guess, like I went and I just did like a lot of portraits. I was very much like really reserved. I was nervous. It was something that like I never really thought of myself doing. So when I did my first shoot and whatnot, was with actually Dennis Buttermore, Vintage Glamour Photography. He was like my first shoot entirely into this whole introduction. And I met him through another model who was very active in the community, whereas I was just kind of like, I don't know what I'm doing. And I tagged along with a shoot with her, and I ended up shooting with Dennis, and it was a really good time. I ended up really liking the photos. It was really simple, just portraits and maybe like some vintage outfits and whatnot. We were pretty like simple with it for it being my first shoot and whatnot. And I remember getting the photos back at the very end and kind of seeing myself in a fresher light, and I was like, okay, that's something I want to do. And then I ended up diving headfirst, like no questions asked. Like.
That's awesome. That's kind of how we do everything. Is you like it a little bit, and so you jump head first.
Yeah.
That's cool. Well, what have been some of your favorite modeling adventures? Because I know you're big into adventures.
I am. I've been all over the state of Michigan for modeling, and that's been really cool in itself, being able to see like different towns and like different scenery that like I wouldn't see, going back and forth with my day job at Applebee's. So with that, it's just overall I like the connections I make. I love the places I've seen. I think one of my favorite times modeling, because like the adventures and whatnot, the photos are really cool too. But like when I had that like whole group shoot at Clare, Michigan. I ran it with a photographer friend of mine, and we ended up getting all these girls in to do like this really cool venue shoot, and that was like a full weekend getaway for everyone, and that was really, really fun and cool. Like it was just pretty much hanging out with the girls for a full weekend, just a little bit of partying, lots of working, but it was a good time. It was, honestly, I think that one's one of my favorites to this day. It was like experience-wise, was just getting all these girls together, and just the vibes were just immaculate. It was great. It was a lot of like uplifting and good support system and whatnot.
Now, do you feel like your interest in modeling was more about making money or just the experiences you were having?
I wish I made more money modeling. When it was good, it was great. But I was never one of those girls. Like a lot of the people who see my modeling or find out I'm modeling, the first thing they ask is like, "Oh, I've always wanted to be a model. How'd you get into that?" And I never once, as like a kid or anything, was like, "Yeah, I want to model." Like it was just kind of like, "Oh, that's cool, whatever." But when I started modeling, you know, I just got out of my parents' house and whatnot, and it was like a breath of fresh air. It was something I was doing for myself for once, and I really liked overall just kind of like how it made me feel. Like when I saw those photos with the fresh light, I was like, okay. I was like, this may not be like a forever thing for me, but this is definitely something I want to do. And honestly, like it was never really about the money. It was 100% like it just helped build my confidence. It helped me learn a lot about myself and discover who I was and what I liked and what I wanted to do. And a lot of like what I wanted to impact in the world. A lot of that too with like modeling and stuff. It was wild. I wasn't expecting any of that. At first I just wanted pretty photos. I was like, these make me feel pretty. I want more. But then as it progressed, like my intentions, I guess, progressed with it and became more and more.
That's awesome. How have jellyfish helped give you a deeper understanding of life?
They're so cool. Like they don't got a single lick of brain activity. They're just nothing but nervous system, and you can't fuck with them because they'll like zzz, and like you could be dead. Like Vax jellyfish, don't touch them. They will kill you. And like that's just so cool. Just be mindless, doing your own thing, and don't be fucked with. Like I don't know. I love that. I just want to like not care about anything and go do my own thing and not have anyone fuck with me. Like,
That's awesome.
That I love. They're my favorite animal for that reason.
Now, in the photography and modeling community, there are a lot more male models per female, or male photographers per female model.
Mm-hmm.
Does that have the potential to create some sketchy situations, or?
Absolutely. Yeah, there's a lot of how do I want to word this? Unsatisfactory situations that people get put into with that sort of stuff. It's when I started modeling, a big thing that they drilled into me was like never go alone because of that reason. You know, one of the number one ways for like sex trafficking and whatnot is 100% pretending to be a photographer looking for a model, and then they just pick them up and go. So it was always like always bring someone. You know, they always tell you as kids like don't meet strangers off the internet. Don't meet strangers off the internet. And 90% of this job is, hey, I saw your work off the internet. Let's meet up and work together. So, you know, there's always safety concerns and stuff with that. So, like, a big thing, like, I was always taught is absolutely, like, discuss boundaries, concerns, and what the shoot's about to be beforehand. Always bring someone, whether, like, someone that you're comfortable with and whatnot, and who's going to, you know, make sure you get to point A, point B, and back safely. Who's going to, you know, make sure you're safe and whatnot. You know, do your research on the photographer beforehand. Make sure that, you know, any models they past worked with, reach out to them, make sure they're credible, make sure they're appropriate, make sure they're professional, yada, yada, yada. So it's unfortunate that there's a lot of people out there who do take advantage of the situation. You know, I can be thankful that I haven't ran into too many of that, or I can safely say I haven't ran into much of that at all. But I know girls who have, and it's very damaging and to the community itself.
So educating other models is actually pretty important to you, right?
Yes, absolutely. It can get you farther, not only with like your career, if this is something you take seriously, because you got to know a little bit about what's going on and what you want to do with it, but also like mainly for safety. You know, making sure you're safe. You're, you know, putting yourself in safe situations and whatnot, and making sure you're in a healthy and safe mindset as well.
Okay. Is there anywhere, you know, this isn't necessarily your personal experience, but are there any sites or forums or anything like that where aspiring models can go to look at, say, these are safety guidelines and what you should and shouldn't do type of thing?
Yeah, no, like I know a lot of models start off on like Model Mayhem, and a lot of photographers I've worked with are off Model Mayhem and too, like modelmayhem.com or Michigan Model Mayhem or something like that. And while they don't unfortunately do the research on their photographers and credit them and whatnot, so it's not the safest website. A lot of times, like you can, Facebook groups is what I started with, like a lot of Facebook groups and whatnot. And there's like a specific Facebook group for like referencing and reviewing new photographers that you're working with, and to like bring them up to like the model community, so models can say yes, they were a pleasant experience, or no, stay away from that guy, he's kind of sketchy, kind of thing.
Okay. Okay. Well, that's definitely good to know.
Yeah.
You know, for people to be able to search for that. Now, I heard that you once ruined the MSU football team's playoff chances by sleeping with all of the team members' girlfriends. They were so distraught they fell apart on the field. Now, what inspired an action like that?
I'm a hoe. Can't tame the hoe phase. Sorry, MSU. Took them all for a ride. It's fine.
So what are some of your all-time favorite shoots? You know, I know you already said the one in Clare, where your girls' weekend. Were there any others that really stood out to you as just being awesome?
There's so many that, like, it's hard to pinpoint a favorite shoot because, like, one of the ones I constantly go back to is I worked with Amanda at Lens Queen Photography. She recently rebranded. I think it's just Grand Rapids Photography. I'll have to check out. But we ended up doing a Coca-Cola shoot, and it was all vintage, like the 1960s pinup, and we went down.
Those pictures. They're
yeah,
adorable.
we went downtown. Ended up finding like I think it was a hot dog. Yesterdog has like all the Coke like advertisement, the old-fashioned Coke advertisement. We got some glass Coke bottles, had the whole like get up, big red like glasses and whatnot, and that was a lot of fun. And I think that one I have. One of my very first shoots, like within the first year I was modeling, it's an orange flowy dress and very ballroomy. It kind of looks like a fairy tale. A lot of the ones that turn out to be my favorites are very like specific, like unique ones. Like the tarantula ones that we actually did are on there
fun.
too. Yeah, those are a lot of cool because that's crazy. People were like, "Well, it's a real spider," and I'm like, "Yeah, like, of course it is." Like,
well, now, and how did things evolve for you with modeling since the beginning? You know, how did the shoots start to change?
So when I first started, I was very much like, I was much more reserved. I was definitely like, I'm just here for portraits and a good time. After I started branching out to new photographers, because like the second or third photographer I ever worked with was Edward Melama and Vince Wickline. And Eddie, I still work with Eddie on occasion too. And I was supposed to set up something with Dennis here shortly as well. But after I got more comfortable with the job itself, and not only that, but like myself as well, and like my body and what I knew I was comfortable and okay with, I did end up doing more towards like boudoir or like the lingerie and applied nude art and whatnot. And I think with, can you repeat the question? Sorry, I forgot where I was going.
I just wanted to know how things evolved for you.
How things evolved, okay,
Because you
yeah.
started with portraits, and
I
it
did.
seems like you slowly started doing stuff that was a little more revealing.
Yeah. It was a lot of confidence building in that aspect. Like I think it helps that like a lot of the photographers I worked with were very, very trusting photographers too. They weren't out for any malicious intent and whatnot. So I was able to build and grow in myself confidently without any other outside threats. And with that, I think that definitely sped up that progression there. Like,
talk to me about this move into online sex work, or realizing that you could actually make money with these images on OnlyFans or Fansly.
Yeah, actually, so I did a lot of implied nude work and revealing stuff that would obviously not be appropriate for Facebook guideline standards or Instagram. For a little bit there before I started doing online sex work. And so I had all these really nice photos that weren't explicit per se, but definitely revealing that I couldn't do anything with. And one of the photographers I worked with was John Hatched. You're a dude. Love you. He is so sweet, and he was actually one of my first paid gigs and whatnot. And he just does very like almost like Renaissance paintings. It's nothing explicit, I am nude and whatnot, but I'm, everything important's covered, and it's a lot of lace work and very pretty and very feminine. And he asked me for my consent and permission to post them on like a site that doesn't have like censorship and whatnot. And I was like, I don't care, like whatever. I'm like, I wish I could post them. Like I didn't think anything of it. And he paid me for my time and whatnot, and I went to go see him like every 2 weeks, and I went back down again, and he was like, he's like, a lot of these people love you. He's like, they love the photos we put out. He's like, they asked me to work with you again, yada, yada, yada. And he always paid me well and stuff like that. And I was like, if you don't mind me asking, I was like, well, you think I could like do that? Like, let me hear more about what you're doing. Like, you're making obviously enough money to pay me and do your thing. Like, hang on. Like, and he was like, he's like, if you're ever looking for like on censorship sites, I know a lot of these girls do like websites and sell their photos on the side and whatnot. And this was kind of before OnlyFans really became like public knowledge. And I was like, okay, cool. And then I started just kind of like hustling them on the side of like, hey, you can pay to get this photo uncensored, I'll send it to you kind of thing. And that's how a lot of that kind of started. eventually, like, OnlyFans became a big thing, like, right before the pandemic hit. And everyone was like, oh, like, these girls can just easily sell these nudes online and whatnot. And I was like, got a lot of those. I got a lot of good ones of those. I thought all about profit and whatnot in that aspect. Like, OnlyFans and adventuring into sex work was purely about, like, the money that I could make from that. And I started up on OnlyFans, like, right before I moved to Greenville, like, I want to say 3 or 4 years ago. And I started doing that, and I've been doing that ever since.
That's really cool. I tried to get on there. No one subscribed to me.
Oh, are you advertising in the right places?
I am not.
I am not!
Now, do you do any traveling for your online work anymore?
Occasionally, like Lost Lands, that music festival I went to Ohio, that was pretty much paid for by my OnlyFans group. Nice. So like that was really nice. A lot of times, if I ever want to go anywhere, like as unfortunate as it is, but like I play the dumb blonde bimbo online. I'm like, hey, like, you can see me naked, send my ass to Florida, and I just happen to go. Like it works. Like so Ohio, like the trip to Lost Lands, like most of that was pretty much paid for just by like my online sex work. A lot of it's just like in the moment because you got to be you're supplying something and the demand for that stuff is constantly high. So you got to be in your subber's face about it all the time. So like everywhere I go, I'm making content where I go. So it's always like, hey, I'm gonna be in like Seattle. I'm gonna be in Seattle. Come buy your content from me in Seattle, and take me out to dinner in Seattle. You'll get content when I get back, or buy me drinks and yada yada yada. And a lot of that stuff, like it's easy as asking.
That's pretty cool. I wouldn't have thought of that. That's for sure. Well, one thing that I've heard or that I hear people say is that sex work isn't really real work. Selling your body or nude pictures isn't actually work. What do you think of that idea?
I wholeheartedly disagree on that. Like, sex work is definitely real work. I definitely, like, it's a well-paying job, but with any job, there is a lot of, time needed and effort and energy put into it. And at the end of the day, like, you're selling your body. Like, I'm selling my body at Applebee's. I just have to be there and present making drinks. I may be in a different way, but I'm selling my body. And so with OnlyFans, like, I'm still online hours a day making sure I'm getting content out. I'm online making sure, like, I'm presentable, that my subbers are getting what they want and need, that I'm able to fulfill any requests or content they might want. And, like, that takes a lot of energy. Like, you have to bop back on there and be ready to go at any moment's notice. It's a lot like, I don't want to say it's a lot like being on call, but, like, people, it's a lot of advertising why they should pay for your content when they can get something similar or even better for free off like Pornhub or even Google Images. So it's about having that like personal connection, but you can't have that personal connection with them unless you're working at it. So you got to be able to advertise yourself between the advertising, the taking the pictures, making yourself look, appropriate for that sort of work. Because I can't just roll out of bed and, record myself. Like, people want me to look put together, want me to look nice. So it takes about the same amount of time as a shift by the time I'm done with a day of making content for my online work. So I can wholeheartedly, like, there are days I'm more tired working online than I am busting my ass at Applebee's for 6 hours making drinks. Like, it's like, Jesus, like, it's very emotionally draining too, because a lot of the time, like, I don't think maybe OnlyFans work wouldn't be as draining if it was more widely accepted, because a lot of the time, I definitely recognize a lot of emotional, like, withdrawal when people are like, oh, like, what do you do for work? I always just point out Applebee's. I'm usually very open about my stuff, but I'm not gonna, be up front and be like, yo, yeah, my main job's OnlyFans, like, it does get a lot of hate, and I think that interprets a lot more work towards the page itself to keep it up and running.
Okay. Do you feel like people who do sex work, either online or in person, are in any way less than people who don't do sex work?
No, not at all. I think sex is still very taboo, and I don't think that should be the case. Sex is, in some cases, I think one of the best ways I can say this is, to some, sex is primal, and to others, sex is sacred. And it doesn't matter if it's more of the primal side or the sacred side to you, but sex in itself should be good nonetheless, whether it's something you keep to yourself or something you want to share with others. Sex in it, like, it shouldn't ever be anything like, you know, like hurtful or anything like that. Like in those instances, like obviously, like it's different, but sex should absolutely be like consent on both sides, like very much 100%, you know, an enjoyment. And I just happen to take enjoyment in, you know, being able to do this for my people online, you know, being able to supply my subbers who are able to supply for me in a different way what they want.
No, very well said. You know, for something that's been a part of us as humans since humans have existed, seems pretty silly that we still look at it as taboo.
Yeah, we very much do, and it's unfortunate because, like, I know growing up I had to learn about my sexual preferences and my sexual identity completely on my own because it's so taboo, and it's becoming lesser taboo in this day and age, which 100% keep going for it. We're making breakaways, but it's definitely like we could be doing more with it if sex work was more widely accepted.
Now, I understand that you're really big into fishing. You go to all these competitions like bass country. Where did that love of the outdoors come from?
You call it bass country? I'm more offended that you called bass country bass country than the question itself. Like, just, yeah, going fishing, headbanging. Oh my goodness, that's funny. I like that one.
So, what kind of challenges has sex work presented you with?
I lied. I wasn't ready. Oh no. A lot of it is just a lot of discrimination against like the work I do. A lot of it is either like fetishized, like everyone's like, oh, a girl that does porn, you either get fetishized or they want nothing to do with you because you're easy access or whatnot, or dirty or whatever. I've heard it all. So like I think that's probably the biggest challenge, because my family actually, like, I'm not close with too much of them, but like the parts of my family that I am close with were very accepting of it. I was very thankful that like my family that I am like close with was very, you know, understanding. It was like, as long as you're doing it in a healthy mindset, like, do you kind of thing. So a lot of the judgment and like the, you know, challenges I face are probably more from like external people, and I just have to remember to myself that like it doesn't really matter. A lot of it does kind of affect my mental health too. With that, like it's very draining to keep up on. Like I said, you have to constantly be in like your subber's face and whatnot, and with that, like it's very mentally draining. I have to be on call for these people or like accessible for these people whenever they may need something from me. And with that, like I want to be able to just fully live in and enjoy the things I'm in the life I'm experiencing, but a lot of the times, like I do have to keep, you know, like the tether on my phone on me so I can capture it. And with that, like, because a lot of it is the sex work and being able to make content where I go, but a lot of it is too is like even outside the sex work, people want to know what you're doing, what you're up to. You have to constantly be providing content for them to mindlessly scroll through and to remind them like, hey, I'm here, I'm doing stuff. So it's not outside of the sex work itself. It's constantly promoting and like, yes, I'm doing stuff, I'm doing things. Make sure you keep following me, kind of thing. And that's, you know, with, like I said, any content creator, not just sex work, that's very draining, you know, not being able to fully experience something because you're behind the phone, the screen, for everyone else to have to experience it with you, kind of thing.
And I think one of the most important things about any job or a hustle is the type of life it lets you lead. It's not just the money. So are you happy with your life? Are you happy with what you've been able to do because of your work? With
what I've been able to do with it, yes. Like I definitely still struggle in aspects. Like I think happiness in itself is not an end achievement. I feel like happiness just is fleeting by in life, and we have to take the time when we feel happiness to live in that happiness, because nothing lasts forever, kind of thing. And unfortunately, like it lasts with any emotion, the negative and the positive ones, such as, you know, happiness. So like with what I'm doing right now, I'm confident with what I do. I like what I do, and most of the time it does make me happy. It can be draining, it can be exhausting, and there are aspects from what I do, even if it makes me happy, that are negative, like the outward judgment and whatnot. But it's definitely, I forgot the question again.
I think you answered
Okay,
the question.
perfect. Okay, good. Yes, I'm happy. I'm happy with what I do. I've been able to help a lot of people too. I recognize that, and like that's something that brings me a lot of happiness too. In that, I remember it now.
That's good. That's good. And I hear you're a huge advocate for recriminalizing marijuana in the States. Is there a specific reason for that you wanted to share with
Man, all
your
these
future
weed
self?
smoking hippies are bullshit. Job feeding leeches, motherfucker.
You're a brave woman.
I'm a
You
brave
really are. Speaking out for what's right. Now, is there anything that you really want to remember most about this time of your life?
I think just what all I've been able to accomplish. Like it's a lot of fun to. I'm not gonna lie, it's a lot of fun to be able to be like, yeah, I used to be a model, or I was a big model, like in like, the Grand Rapids area, and that in itself is really cool and an accomplishment in itself to say. But I think a lot of like what I'm proud of, and I look back on it, and I'm like really excited about, are the girls I've helped get into this. Like so many ladies, I feel like have just blossomed into better versions of themselves with doing something like this. And I'm incredibly thankful to have been that bridge that allows them to do whatever they were doing to become who they become. And that's like super awesome to be a part of and watch them grow and do that. So I love, I think that aspect of it is going to be like one of the highlights of when I look back of like, okay, I was able to help these women.
You're kind of like a big sister, a mentor of sorts.
That's super sweet. It makes me so happy. I don't know about that. I want to be able to help where I can help. And with a lot of these people, it's, you know, they just want to be able to see what other people see. And I think photography is a great way to capture that.
Okay. And so, Kai, why did you insist that we both be naked for this interview?
Why shouldn't we be naked for this interview?
I guess that's a good point. Well, I hope that anyone who sees this, including your future self, gets some insight into what your 20s were like and has some fun with it.
No, I super appreciate you doing this. Thank you. It
You're
means a
very
lot.
welcome. And good night, everyone. At the end,
Okay,
is
yeah.
what could we say to wrap up? We'll have to think of something good to say. Do you have like a catchphrase we could use?
Swiggity swooty, coming for that booty, my neck, my back, my anxiety attack. Like, I don't.
All right, that's not what I would have gone with. I'm not you.
That's not what I would have gone with.
Here's $20 in a sexual awakening.
Yeah, here's $20 in a sexual awakening. Please come again.
And Kai, why is it that you insisted we both be naked for this interview?
Fuck, I didn't have an answer for that. I was so ready for it and didn't have an answer. I knew this question was coming and it's the only one I didn't prepare for.
You were going to have a great answer
I know.
for this.
I was going to have a great answer and it went... And I'm like, fuck.